Okay, starting from where we left off, we're now logged in for the very first time. If you missed how to log in, please go back to our main page and look for our video on how to create an account. Now, once you've created an account, you can do a couple things. You can start your own project with this big green button, or you can look at some of the other people's projects. As an example, we have Lest I Forget by Catherine Mitchell. If you click on that link, you're going to be able to view Catherine's project. Now, she has a completed life story project, and it's in 4 parts. And here's all the parts. If you click on one of those parts to start reading, it'll come up with a viewer for her life story project. And this can be exactly how things turn out for your project as well. So as you can see, you've got a nice, basically book, like an online book to read. She's got photos, she's got everything integrated together. Catherine's a very fascinating person, and I encourage you to go view her story. Now, back at the main screen, if you want to create your own story, click Start a Project. Now, the entire system is based around a project. Now that we're going to create a project, first thing we're going to need is a project name. So we've suggested that you come up with a catchy title for your project. I'm going to put in here something about my life. And for the name of the subject, it's going to be my fictional character, Herbert Gerblebottom. And you don't need to put a description. Only the stuff with the red stars is mandatory. But hey, why not put a description? And then the start date will default to today's date. If you want to start your project at a specific time in the future, you're more than welcome to use the drop-down calendar here to pick a different date. And percent complete you can use to track the how far along your project is. Now, these flags, in progress means you're currently working on the project. On hold means that you've put the project on hold for some specific reason. Tribute is used if you're doing a project on behalf of somebody who's passed away already. And private allows you to make the story public, like Catherine's story, which we just viewed, or if you want to keep it private for just yourself and your family and friends, you can keep it private. If you do put it on hold, you can put a reason in this box to explain why it's on hold. Then you create your story, and it brings you to the options screen. Now, the options screen is your entire view of your project, and it gives you the options that you can use to make your project successful. Now, these ones are pretty obvious. You've got the project itself. You can go in and create another project if you have the correct account permissions. Your dashboard is, we'll get to that later. It shows you sort of like a friendly view of your entire project. User settings, this allows you to do stuff like show last update fields. If you have multiple people working on the project, you can turn on the last update fields, and it'll show you who edited the last item. As well as your account information lets you do things like update your email, change your subscription, delete your account, change your password, all that kind of stuff, which is also available from up here, by the way. Now over here, this part in the middle, this is kind of where your rubber meets the road. So let's skip over stories and writings for a second, and let's start with pictures and files. Now, pictures and files gives you the ability to upload photos, videos, that kind of thing. So what we'll do is we'll click the green button. Green button is your friend in this application. It always shows you what you're kind of expected to do in addition to the other options that you have. So you click the green button. Now you can upload one image at a time or one video, or you can upload a bunch of files at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload a bunch of old family photos. The timeline date, I'm just going to leave it alone for now. I'm going to keep them private. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go choose files, and it's going to give me a box that allows me to go in and select my old photos. So I'm going to select all 5 of these photos and hit open. And so it shows I got 5 files about to come up, and I click upload and I wait a couple seconds, and all these photos are going to be uploaded to the system. Now that the photos are here, I can view them as a gallery, and a gallery is basically pretty straightforward. You can click on the images and then you can either use the arrows to scroll through them, or if you're on a tablet, you can swipe with your finger to go back and forth through the pictures. And then you can click the X or just off the screen to go back here. And then when you go back to the list, it gives you some more options. There's details, edit, delete, and transcription. If we were to edit this first image, what I might do is I might say, well, I want to be able to tell my images apart a lot easier. So I'm going to actually name this image our family car. And the timeline date was actually somewhere around 1944 in the summer. I don't remember the exact date. So what I'll do is I'll put in, something like July 15th. It doesn't matter too much. It's more the year that you would be worried about anyways. So I'll save that item. And so now you can see if you were to do that to all your images, you'd be able to notice which one is which easier. In addition, you can link to a file if there's a file somewhere else on the internet that you want to include in your project. You can just link to it rather than uploading it. Now back at the options, we're going to go into stories and writings, and we're going to actually start writing something. We're going to start writing part of our story. Again, got the green buttons. We're going to write something. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of memory traversing. URL is used if you're using Google Docs or some other online document management system and you just want to link to your files. Now again, that's probably not going to be what you're using all the time. Again, you can change your timeline date to make it more specific. And then you can go in and write until your heart's content. There's a lot of room here to write. You can write and write and write and write. You can stretch this down if you want to give yourself more room to work. In addition, this little box here, all these items have pop-up tips for you so you can see what they are. Full screen will allow you to use it like Microsoft Word or something, where you have your toolbar at the top and then you have the full screen to just go crazy. As you can see, it's still highlighted. You push that again, it goes back down here where it was before. Now what we'll do here is you can save this right away just by hitting create. And now that you have this item, at any time you can go in and look at it and just read it the way it is. Or you can go back in and edit it by clicking the little pencil. Now, I want to show you how you can easily add images. So here's where I start talking about the family car. And I have a nice picture that I just uploaded. So if I go to images, I have this nice picture of the family car. Now it'll just dump the image in there by default. But what you can do is you can click on that image and then it gives you other options. For example, I could reduce it by half and make it 50%. And then I can actually float it to the right so that the text wraps around it. You can also float it to the left if you want. It depends on what you're trying to do, or you can do no float and just have it like we had it when we first dumped it in. Now, in addition to that, when you click on the image, you have a little taggy right here in the corner that allows you to make the image a specific size to fit exactly the way you want it to fit. Now, keep in mind that this is a content gathering and organizing tool. This is not meant to actually create the final product. If you're designing a book, for example, you gather all your content here and then you design your book later. Now, the way this works is these items are proportionally organized. So, for example, remember that full screen view? If I go to full screen view now, the image is going to be in a slightly different place. It's still going to be aligned right, and it's still going to be about where I start talking about a car, but it's not going to be in the exact same place as it is when I've made it down here as a smaller screen. So when I save that now, the image is embedded in that item, and now when I go to the details view to view it, you can see the image is nicely in there. When you print this, if I was to print this screen right now, all these buttons would disappear because they don't get printed. So this is and neither would the header or the footer. So it actually gives you a really nice print layout if you want to just print your book to do proofreading or share it with somebody else. Also, pulling this view up and printing it could also give you, you could also print it as a PDF file and send it up to a book publishing software of some kind. So now that we've created a story, let's look at some of the other options you have. An example is characters. For example, we talked about other people working on your application. So right now, the only character in this project is yourself. But you can create as many characters as you want. You can add an existing user if you know that they already have an account. But if they don't, or you don't know if they have an account, you can create a new character. So in this example, I want to include my fictional buddy, who's actually a real person, of course, is Larry Page from Google. So let's include Larry, and we'll put his last name in, Page. I don't know what Larry's birth date is, but it's not a mandatory field. We're going to make Larry a contributor on the project. So now when I create this item, I've got Larry Page as a contributor on this project. If Larry Page happened to create an account in this system with this exact same email address, as soon as he logged in, he would instantly have access to my project because I've made him a contributor. Now, if he used a different email address, he would have to let me know, and I would have to go and I would have to change this to include him. I would probably use an existing user to include him. But the cool thing is that if you know the person's email address, they'll be instantly given access to your project. Now, because it's a project, you and potentially other people could be doing a project. Like, for example, you may create a project for your grandma, and you may want to have the entire family chip in and help contribute to this project. So you could add all those people in there, and you could use a task list to let people know who's doing what and what needs to be done. Here's an example. I'll create a task here. I'm going to say, you know what? I know a lot about my childhood, but I was pretty young at the time, so I'm going to, schedule an interview with my dad. Let's make it, Friday at, let's do 3:00 p.m. All right, so Friday at 3:00 p.m. And I'll just put a little note in here for myself, but you could also put the note in for the other people that are working on your project. And I'll just put in meeting. It's a category is a free flow field. You can put whatever you want. And the percent complete is 0 because I haven't done anything yet. So that allows you to build a list of tasks to manage your project. And then finally, I wanted to show you one really cool feature of the application. If you want to create your life story, but you're not quite sure how to start or where to go with it, we've created this really cool feature called Guide Me. Now, Guide Me basically helps you by virtually interviewing you to create your project. What it does is it picks categories like childhood, employment, travel, family, character. And when you click on these items, it will start asking you questions. So for example, this question is, I hope nobody saw that. We were all young once. What amazingly reckless things did you do? Did you get caught? You can, if you don't like that question, if you don't have an answer to that question, you can pick a different category, or you can just skip the question and it'll ask you a totally different question. When you put in, when you pick a question that you want to answer, you can go in here and you can type something about my favorite moment, and then you can add, just like we did with the story about the car, you can add photos from your library, say this one here, and then we can, again, you can click on the image and make it about 50% of what it was. And then if you want, you can change the timeline date. If you don't want to, you just hit create. And what it'll do is it's going to go back and it's going to ask you a totally different question now. So you can continue, say every day or two, you can go in and answer 2 or 3 questions. And before you know it, your life story is completely written. Now, as you can see, now we have two stories and writings. We have the original one that I wrote, Trips in the Family Car. And now we have what was the happiest moment in your childhood, describe the situation. And I've got my favorite moment and a photo. So your story can come together very, very quickly. And as you can see, the system is very simple and easy to use. And once your project is more or less complete, you can make it public, and then other people will be able to see it down here in the bottom of their screen, and they'll be able to view your story. Now, in this case, we're working on the Ed Whalen story. We have a whole bunch of stuff written. We have a whole bunch of videos that we link to on YouTube, and we have some images in the image gallery. So if you want to check that out, feel free to log in, create yourself an account, and go ahead and view all of our public projects as they come online. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions for the application, please use the support link at the top here. What it'll do is it'll just give you a really simple screen where you can type in a whole bunch of information about whatever you want to send to us and let us know about, and then just submit the feedback and we'll get it and take care of it as soon as we can. Thanks for watching.